Do you ever find yourself wishing you had one more hour on vacation? Or do you travel with kids and dread waiting through airport security with them? Or maybe you're like us and travel with a ton of electronics and hate unpacking and repacking them every time you arrive at the airport. We've got your solution. Here's how to hack your way to the front of the security line for free. And keep listening until the end to hear our first listener-submitted crazy travel story, fake taxis, lost hats, and Liam Neeson.
Welcome to the Travel More podcast.
Each episode, we share custom itineraries, travel hacks, expert advice, and even stories of our past travel failures to help you level up your travel game.
I'm Shelly, a lover of plans, itineraries, and cheap flights. I'm an expert deal finder with one eye always on the budget.
And I'm Bruce, the improviser, ready to pick up where plans fail to turn letdowns into unexpected trip favorites. We're here to bust through barriers that stop you from making your travel dreams a reality.
So book that flight, buy the tickets, and say hello to your next adventure.
This is the Travel More Podcast. Welcome back to the Travel More Podcast.
Welcome to summer school.
So today I think we're talking about probably the worst part of traveling.
I mean, worst, that's a pretty strong statement. But
yeah, maybe not the worst, but it's something that I don't think anyone says they like.
No, I mean, I'll give you that. I think it's probably one of the worst parts of air travel, for sure.
That's true. Okay, let me back up. Right, so flying.
Yeah.
Probably one of the worst parts about flying.
Yeah.
And that's waiting in line through airport security.
Yeah.
Or coming back through customs, too.
Oh, yeah,
Same thing.
either way.
Coming and going.
Yeah.
It sucks.
It does. And, I get it. Like, I totally understand the need for security. I'm all about it. But it just is, it's just kind of a drag, you know what I mean?
Yeah, especially when
it's,
it's nerve-wracking when you're trying to make your flight and you're worried about how long you should come, and it's also annoying when it's kind of the end of your trip and you're coming back and having to wait forever after a long flight.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell, like, whether you should come very early for a flight. Like, some people get there 3 or 4 hours before the flight. Some people, like, I follow these people on Instagram who are literally cutting it down to, like, the last boarding call, and they're, like, barely getting to the airport. Like, it's wild. I would hate that.
No, me too. I would not chance that close.
Way too much. But where do you come to the airport? And I think that question kind of gets answered a little better when you know that you're not going to have to sit through like a crazy security line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. When you have the confidence of what we're about to talk about,
right.
The tools to get there and skip that line.
Right, exactly. And then another cool tip that Bruce just reminded me before we got on was there is a thing that you can, some airports use, that you can look up like the wait at security. So if you don't have this tool, which I would not recommend, I recommend you getting one of these tools. But if you don't, or if you do have this tool and it's still a very busy airport, you can look up how long security is right now. And I wouldn't take that for exact fact.
Yeah, it's never been perfect when I've looked at it, but it's definitely been helpful.
It'll give you an idea, though. Like, is it going to be like a 15, 30-minute wait, or is it going to be like an hour wait? You know what I mean? Like, it gives you an idea, at least. I know Orlando has it. I can't think of any other ones, but we don't have to use them.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need it anymore. So,
yeah.
Well, anyway, before we get into it, we do want to share that we're very excited because we're at the end of the episode, we're sharing our first travel story, or travel fail, I guess you could say. Is that
is it a fail? I don't know. It's a really great story, though, and we're really excited to tell Alan's story today. He's actually been like really amazing on the Facebook group. He's been answering questions. He's got some amazing travel hacking redemptions that he shared with us. So shout out to Alan. We are so excited to tell your story because it is so great. I read it and then I immediately called Bruce in and I was like, you have to read this story. It's so
good.
A
good one. It's a perfect one to start off with.
Yeah,
so
perfect to start.
Look forward to that.
Okay, so the question of the hour is, how do I skip airport security?
Well, that's simple. TSA Precheck and global entry.
Yeah. So let's start by saying you can get these services for free with many low annual fee cards. So one of our favorites, we've talked about a million times, is the Capital One Venture Card. That's the one we started with, not the one that we have now, although the one that we have now also includes it. But it also comes with a $395 annual fee. The Capital One Venture is just a measly $95 a year. And then you get either one of these for free, either TSA Precheck or Global Entry.
And you can also get this on the Capital One Venture X, the Sapphire Reserve, and Amex Platinum. And there's a lot of other cards that kind of come with this too. It's a common one, but it's so worth the value.
Yeah, so just like airport lounges, don't skip the episode because you don't want to pay for the luxury of it, because you probably won't even have to.
Oh, and honestly, at this point, I don't even consider this a luxury.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine.
It's a requirement.
This is like baseline now.
Yeah, honestly, I will say, getting to the airport, walking straight through security, not even taking your shoes off, and then going to an airport lounge for an hour before your flight, it definitely sets your vacation off on the right foot.
Oh yeah, definitely. So some guidelines around, what do you have to be? What do you have to be to qualify for this?
Yeah,
so
just quickly.
You've got to be a U.S. citizen or a U.S. national or a permanent resident to apply for global entry or TSA Precheck. And there are some countries that if you have a passport from, you can also apply.
Yeah, there's like a dozen or so. We'll put the list of countries in the article and the show notes. But yeah, so you pretty much have to be a U.S. citizen or part of one of these few countries.
Right. So let's start off with TSA Precheck. So TSA Precheck is $78 for 5 years and allows you to use the TSA Precheck line instead of regular security. Mm-hmm. And typically this means it's much shorter line and sometimes no line at all. You don't have to take off your shoes, and you don't have to take liquids or electronics out of your bag.
Dude, the electronics thing is what gets me, because how annoying is it to take your computer out, or we have a camera in a camera bag, and then it's just you have to unzip all these pockets because our computer bag is
never calm.
Big.
No matter how many times you do it, I feel like it's always a panic, and you either get one person who's super nice, and the next one's yelling at you, or one person says take out your laptop, and the next one is saying why did you take out your laptops? Yeah. So I don't know what it is, but every time I go through security, it seems like the tune changes. So
this is a lot easier. You
Definitely.
Just go. I mean, you still have to go through metal detectors. There's still a level of security here. It's just because you've been pre-checked. You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to go through as much of process.
Right, and it's really easy to apply, and usually it's a very quick approval turnover.
Yeah, I actually have a good personal story for this one. So I told my dad that this was free with his card because he has that Venture X card. Or no, just the Venture card. And he found an appointment while at our house in New England, on a Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, on a whim. We should
I just told him about it, and he was like, oh, well, I was going to work the next day. He had a couple hours to kill, and he's like, there's an appointment tomorrow at this CVS. And so he did the interview. He had TSA Precheck on his flight home on Saturday. So It was literally he went to the interview, got approved, got his number, put it on his boarding pass, and
it's so easy. I mean, the only thing, there are some red flags that you can read about on a Homeland Security website, but most people aren't going to have this issue.
No, yeah. And then to use your TSA Precheck, if you have one, or global entry, then you just enter your known travel ID into your booking, and you can do that when you book originally, or you can go back in your reservation and add it after the fact. I've done that a couple of times. One, because I think we had 3 flights booked when we got our TSA Precheck, so I went back and added it to all the flights that we had booked.
So that pretty much sums up TSA Precheck. Now, what's global entry? First, it's good to note that if you have global entry, you also have TSA Precheck. So it's essentially 2 for 1.
Yeah.
Rectangle, square, square, rectangle kind of thing. It also allows you to use a separate line for passport control and customs when re-entering the U.S., which is a huge time saver in so many scenarios.
Well, if you've ever been overseas, those planes are ginormous sometimes. Just huge planes. And they're coming in, every single one of those people has to go through this one line. And if you're coming in at a weird time, which we often are, because honestly those are usually the cheaper flights, you're coming in with 2 people working and 3 international flights landing. And so you have huge lines.
Well, and this is my thing. I think TSA Precheck's awesome. There are times that you can get through the security line and it's fine, not a big deal. And there's even times where I've now had to take off shoes. It's not all the time.
Yeah.
But global entry, you're always going to, I feel like I've never waited less than an hour, or it always feels like an hour.
It's long.
But if you have global entry, man, you just cut past everything.
Yeah. So then why wouldn't you just do global entry if it's both, and they both, you would get one of them for free on your credit card? Well, when you just go for global entry, and that's a good question. We did go for global entry, so we think it's worth it. But it is $100 for 5 years as opposed to $78. So if you're paying for it out of pocket, it's a little more. But again, $100 for 5 years,
it's really
even
not that
if you're
much.
paying for it, it's not much.
And again, most of the cards we were talking about before that have a yearly fee of around $100 will credit you for this as well.
Yeah, and that's a 5-year thing. You don't have to pay it every year. It's just $100 for 5 years. But this one has a lot more intense application.
That's where I think it's different. Yeah. It is more involved.
Yeah, this one you apply online, almost like a background check. For Bruce and I, we got what do they call it? It's like approval, conditional approval,
Yeah,
something like that.
it's like a first step of approval.
Yeah, we got it very quickly, but we also work in schools, so we have been background checked every which way.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like that had something to do with it. It may not, but I just, it feels like it's like, oh yeah, this is easy. And then you have to wait for this pre-approval. That can take 4 to 6 months, though. For Bruce and I, it was like a couple days, but I've heard recently that they're backlogged, just like the passport thing.
Right.
And it can take 4 to 6 months. Then once you have pre-approval, you have to do an interview. So I know you can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes because an interview is a strong word. I think.
Yeah, it is. Right.
We were very nervous about it.
Dude, I think Shelley and I practiced our interview. We were like, listen, don't say anything stupid. Like, what are they going to ask us? What could they ask us? And I'm like, I'm not a criminal. What's going on? But,
Bruce gets very nervous at border crossings for some reason.
I mean, you just think you're going through this area where they could pretty much detain you for any reason. I don't know. It's a lot. Shout out if you're like me and you just
too many TV shows.
Get nervous, even though you have nothing to hide.
So once you've done all the pre-approval, finding the interview in itself can be difficult.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, so we did this last year. And we could not find an interview. We couldn't find a Zoom interview. We looked through Boston's airport, New York's airport, and Hartford's airport, and none of them had any. Like, they didn't even book out far enough to have any available. So it was crazy, and I was like, what do we even do?
Yeah, there were very few sites that did this. I think the one I saw that was most common was probably around Texas because it's close to the border of Mexico.
Oh, that makes sense.
And so,
but none here.
No,
so
it's
we were kind of
common.
like, all right, well, we have this approval and all the things, but like, what do we do? And we found out you can do interviews on arrival. So if you have gone out of the country and you're coming back, you don't need an appointment. You can just say, I'm doing my global entry interview. Yep. And they kind of like take you aside and put you in a different line, which I don't think there was any line when we did it.
No,
we went
I think
straight through.
Very quickly got us there, and then we went through the normal passport control.
Yeah.
And then we walked up to another officer, and he was just like, "Hey, how's your trip? What's up?
Yeah.
Here's what global entry is." It was
I think
very
he asked
easy.
us some very have you been convicted of a felony, or like, is this
Basic
your real name?
questions,
Yeah, very basic questions, and not even many that I can remember. And we did that after coming back from Uganda. So we were like 30 hours of travel in.
Yeah, our pictures
are
on our
ridiculous.
global entry passes are fantastic.
No.
They're the best pictures that I've ever taken.
No, they're horrible. I don't even know if my eyes are all the way open.
No, I don't think
so tired.
But yeah, it was super easy.
It was super easy, yeah.
If you're going to do the global entry one, I definitely recommend... first check it out and see if there's an interview available. Things could have changed, but it's very easy to do it when you're coming back from your flight.
So if you're going to travel... If you travel every year, like once a year internationally, then I would consider global entry. If you travel any more than once a year internationally, I would definitely get global entry. But if you don't travel internationally, TSA Precheck may work just fine, and it's way easier and way quicker.
Yep, definitely worth it either way.
Really quickly, I do just want to mention some other like border crossing things. So there's Nexus, which is expedited border control for Canada, and Sentry, which is the same thing but for Mexico. So if you're just going back and forth, those are the two options. I don't think those are covered by credit cards. I think I've heard of Nexus maybe between one, but I'm not sure which that was. And then there's also Clear, which some people are all about Clear, but it allows you to skip the guy that you check in with, like for your, you show them your passport and stuff. Even with TSA Precheck, you do that. You can skip that guy. So I guess if there's a huge line at TSA Precheck, you could kind of go to the front of it. We have never seen a reason to use Clear. Some people swear by it. It comes with a couple other credit cards. I know Amex Platinum, I think, comes with Clear, and a few others. We've never felt the need, but I guess if you're in a very busy international airport, which I don't know how you can be much busier than JFK and Boston.
I mean, it depends. There's certain times a year that things really back up.
Yeah, so Clear is another one that you may see and wonder what it is, and that's what it is. It's not TSA Precheck, so you still have to do that if you didn't have it. Right. But it does allow you to skip the first line.
So, and definitely check out like the Homeland Security website for all the info. We'll have that link in the show notes. So,
all right, on to our crazy
I'm
story.
Excited. All right, so once again, crazy travel story. Thanks from Alan from our Facebook community. Let's get into it.
In 2015, I went to Moscow and St. Petersburg, Russia. I was worried about the taxi system there and had read reports of fake taxis taking tourists outside the city and demanding money to take them back. So I decided I would Uber, which was my first experience with Uber. On my return Uber to LED Airport, the driver seemed lost and then turned down an alley. He stopped and started to make a phone call. I was actually riding in the front passenger seat and started texting my son that the Uber driver had taken me down an alley and I wasn't sure what was going on. I guess I thought he could pull a Liam Neeson if he had to come and rescue me. The Uber driver then handed me the phone, and a voice on the other line asked me what time my flight was, and then asked to speak back to the driver. I then used a translation app to ask the driver what was going on. Turns out he had gotten lost and thought we were going to be late. He ended up getting me to the airport and would not take a tip since he had gotten lost. I went to check my bags and felt a tap on my shoulder. It was the Uber driver with my hat in his hand. I had left it in the car.
Dude, that's such a good story. And I feel like I could 100% do that, especially being in a country, be like, holy crap, I'm being kidnapped right now. I've read about this. It's happening. It's me.
And then it's like the nicest man ever.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a good story.
It's pretty great. It also makes me think, like, until you travel somewhere and you experience these different things, and you have these ideas, right?
Yeah.
Like, you think this is going to happen. You're like, oh, no, it's just a normal thing, a normal place. But it shows you what happens with language barriers and all that. So, really fun story.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alan.
Thanks, Alan. And if you have a good travel story, a crazy story, a fail, a success, whatever it is, come join our Facebook community. The link's in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. See you then.
See ya.
Did you know that every time you book a Disney or Universal vacation, you're paying for a service that you may not even be using?
Really?
That's right. Travel agent costs are added to your Disney or Universal vacation, whether you use one or not.
So you're telling me that I'm paying for something even though I'm not getting the help?
You got it. So next time you want to book a theme park vacation, make your money work for you. By booking with Magic Pass Travel, you'll get our expertise and years of experience without paying any extra and while supporting a small business.
Check out our show notes to find our contact information.
Can't wait to help you plan your next adventure.